President Lee Jae-myung is now in Italy for a state visit, after wrapping up his visit to Belgium. In Brussels, he held summit meetings with EU leaders and agreed to deepen ties in trade, security, and digital technologies. The U.S. military has launched more strikes against Iran after President Donald Trump said American forces would hit the country hard amid stalled negotiations. This follows the U.S. retaliatory attacks carried out earlier this week, after an American Army helicopter was downed in an apparent drone attack. U.S. consumer prices rose at their fastest pace in 3 years in May, up more than 4% from a year earlier, mainly due to rising energy costs resulting from the war with Iran. Trump defended the rise, saying he loves the inflation and that the numbers were great. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. President Lee Jae-myung is now in Italy after concluding his visit to Belgium. Before departing Brussels, he held summit talks with European Union leaders, where the two sides agreed to expand cooperation in areas ranging from security and trade to advanced technologies. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
President Lee Jae-myung's last stop in Brussels was the European Union headquarters, marking the first such visit by a Korean president in 8 years. There, he held talks with European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. The summit concluded with a 36-point joint statement. One of the strongest messages concerned North Korea and Russia. The two sides strongly condemned what they described as illegal military cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow. They also reaffirmed that North Korea will never be recognized as a nuclear weapon state and expressed concern over its nuclear and ballistic missile programs.
북핵 문제 해결과 한반도 평화 정착을 위해 유럽연합의 변함없는 지지와 건설적인 역할을 당부드렸고 우리 양측이 함께 협력해 나가기로 뜻을 모았습니다.
Trade was another major focus. Korea and the EU, its third largest trading partner, signed a digital trade agreement. The 40-chapter deal replaces the e-commerce section of their free trade agreement, which took effect in 2011.
It will ensure safe and reliable data flow. It will boost e-commerce, and it will harmonize our consumer protection standards.
And with the EU set to tighten its steel safeguard measures from July, the Blue House says President Lee called for fair treatment for Korean steelmakers, citing Seoul's status as both a strategic and free trade partner. The revised rules will nearly halve tariff-free import quotas across 30 steel product categories, while shipments exceeding those limits will face a 50% tariff. On security, Korea and the EU agreed to launch negotiations on a security information agreement. This would establish a legal framework for sharing and protecting classified information, paving the way for closer industrial and defense cooperation. After wrapping up his 2-day visit to Belgium, President Lee has arrived in Italy, the second leg of his 10-day trip to Europe. His state visit begins with a meeting with Italian President Sergio Mattarella. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Ahead of President Lee Jae-myung's visit to Rome, Italy's ambassador to Seoul says the two countries are seeking closer coordination in several areas for a more strategic partnership. Our Oh Soo-young reports.
Beyond food, fashion and Ferraris, Korea and Italy are looking to build a partnership focused on the industries and strategic challenges of the future. That's according to Emilia Gato, ambassador of Italy to Korea, who says President Lee Jae-myung's visit to Rome is expected to deepen cooperation in areas ranging from space and semiconductors to critical minerals and economic security. The visit comes months after Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni travelled to Seoul in January.
More forward-looking content between our cooperation. In fact, the two leaders spoke a lot about high-end technology sectors cooperation. For example, space may be number one. You know, in space, Korea has very high ambitions, and Italy can be a very good partner.
The two countries have already established cooperation between their space agencies and are also exploring opportunities in biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors and scientific research. The focus on future industries is shaping business ties.
The first Italian-Korean Business Forum was held in September last year, and it was really a success. And we decided, for the reason I was explaining before, that we wanted to focus on the F sector, the future sector, the fourth F sector. Biotechnology, industrial automation, robotics, and we had energy transition, digital, transition also, and environment transition. We want to have follow-up, and we will continue to focus on that.
Another growing priority is economic security. As competition intensifies over critical minerals and advanced technologies, both countries are looking to diversify supply chains and secure the resources needed for future industries. Seoul and Rome have discussed combining development partnerships with Africa in joint efforts to secure critical raw minerals.
We want to go together. Why? Because not only because we have the same interest and the same target, and objective, but also because we share the same values.
On that note, Gato says Korea and Italy and the European Union as a whole can be reliable partners for each other, as conflicts and security risks in one region increasingly affect the other. She also highlighted cultural cooperation in language and said that Italian and Korean are not just spoken by their nationals, but also by a diaspora living all over the world, including people in North Korea.
I think really it is very important that Korea and Italy join forces. Why? Because, Italy and Korea are more or less in the same situation as regards people who worldwide speak the language.
This could bind them together and help promote coordination in many cultural and business areas, according to Gato. The ambassador also highlighted growing people-to-people ties, from city partnerships, student exchanges, and even karaoke nights, bringing Koreans and Italians together at the embassy in Seoul. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The United States has launched military strikes against Iran after U.S. President Donald Trump hinted at what he calls harder attacks. An Seung-jin has the details.
The United States has launched additional military strikes against Iran after President Donald Trump said U.S. forces would hit the country hard amid stalled negotiations. U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, announced that the launches began around 5 p.m. on Wednesday Eastern Time, describing them as a series of self-defense strikes. The U.S. did not disclose the specific locations or facilities targeted, though the Defense Secretary had earlier indicated that key Iranian facilities could be among the targets.
Because Iran has a chance to make a good deal, a great deal, to codify what they said they've been willing to do, and they haven't been willing to do it.
Trump had also mentioned that Iranian infrastructure, including power plants and bridges, could be targeted, saying he had the ability to neutralize such facilities if necessary. CENTCOM further stated that the action was in response to what it called Iran's unwarranted and continued aggression. Following U.S. strikes, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy has allegedly targeted 2 ships in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. strikes on Wednesday night follow U.S. retaliatory attacks launched earlier this week after an American Army helicopter was shot down in a drone attack, allegedly from Iran, with Trump adding that evidence recovered from the crash site confirmed Iran's involvement. Following those strikes, Trump told reporters at the White House on Wednesday that we're going to hit them hard again today. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian dismissed Trump's threats, describing them as a sign of desperation rather than strength. In a post on social media, the Iranian president said threats against critical infrastructure reflected Washington's frustration and pledged to withstand any pressure through national unity. Trump has maintained that a diplomatic agreement with Iran remained within reach and that the two sides are very close to a deal. However, he claims that Iran needs to sign the final document and accuses Tehran of delaying the process. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
A Korean vessel has passed through the Strait of Hormuz and is now continuing its voyage, according to Seoul's foreign ministry this morning. The ministry said consultations for the passage were led by a foreign charter and that the vessel is heading to a third country, its final destination. Seoul says it has continued to stress to Iran the need for the prompt and safe navigation of all vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, including Korean ships, while staying in communication with relevant countries. The Oceans Ministry also confirmed the vessel is an LNG carrier operated by a Korean shipping company with 8 South Korean crew members on board. It's the second Korean vessel to exit through the strait after HMM's Universal Winner. The number of Korean vessels still stuck in the Persian Gulf awaiting passage through the strait now stands at 24, with 139 South Korean nationals in the area, including those aboard foreign ships. The United States has approved a potential sale of advanced air-to-air missiles to South Korea in a move aimed at strengthening the country's defense capabilities. The U.S. State Department said Wednesday it authorized a possible foreign military sale of dozens of AIM-120C-8 advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles along with related equipment. The package is estimated to be worth $292 million and will now undergo congressional notification and review. The announcement comes just a week after Washington approved another potential arms sale to Seoul, this time involving joint direct attack munitions, precision-guided bombs, and related equipment valued at around $106 million. U.S. officials said the proposed sales are intended to bolster South Korea's defense readiness and support regional security. U.S. President Donald Trump is defending a sharp rise in inflation, saying higher prices caused by the conflict with Iran will eventually come down once the war ends. His comments came as new inflation data rattled markets and renewed tensions with Tehran weighed on investor confidence. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump has defended a recent rise in inflation, arguing that higher prices linked to the conflict with Iran will ease once the war ends. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, Trump responded to government data showing consumer inflation rose at its fastest pace in 3 years in May. Asked whether the increase could hurt Republicans ahead of November's midterm elections, Trump said he loved the inflation, insisting it is temporary and largely driven by energy costs.
You know what I really love? I love the inflation. Oh, when the war is over, it's coming down. I know you can't. It's going to come down like a rock.
The president revealed that he has approved a plan to secretly move oil tankers to the Strait of Hormuz to help prevent further disruptions to global energy supplies. Trump described the operation as successful and said it was worth the risk. The remarks come as the war with Iran continues to disrupt shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, helping drive up the cost of gasoline, fertilizer, and other goods. Experts also point to the conflict in the Middle East as the main reason for U.S. consumer inflation.
The main story here, headline inflation is up 4.2% on an annual basis. That's the highest we've seen in 3 years since May of 2023. Most of that move is due to energy prices, gasoline prices in particular, from the conflict in the Middle East.
Meanwhile, Wall Street ended lower on Wednesday, with major indexes falling more than 1% as investors weighed rising inflation, weakness in chip stocks, and renewed tensions between Washington and Tehran. Concerns also grew after Trump suggested the U.S. could resume attacks on Iran and warned on social media that Tehran would pay the price if negotiations continue to stall. Also, both Brent crude and U.S. crude futures closed up nearly $2 per barrel on Wednesday, amid concerns that the conflict in the Middle East could escalate further. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea recorded its first job loss in 70 months in May, shedding 40,000 positions from the same period a year earlier. The decline is heavily attributed to the prolonged war in the Middle East, which has driven up raw material costs and severely impacted the domestic manufacturing sector, which lost 140,000 jobs. The agriculture sector shed 121,000 positions. Conversely, the service sector offered a slight buffer, with accommodation and food services adding 20,000 jobs, marking its first increase in 7 months. Youth employment remains weak, with the employment rate for those aged 15 to 29 falling to 43.8%. Asia's leading content marketplace has returned to Busan, bringing together global industry leaders and some of the most anticipated Korean productions. The future of content is on display at this year's Busan Content Market. Our Jo Young-eun was there.
From newly unveiled Korean dramas recognized at the Cannes International Series Festival to AI-generated feature films, some of the year's most anticipated productions are on show in the southeastern coastal city of Busan. Among the most anticipated titles is Sacred Jewel, whose cast and creators, including actors An Bo-hyun, Soo-hyun, and Lee Sung-min, appear to meet the audience. The series was invited to the non-competitive section of the 9 series in April and drew attention again at the Busan Content Market ahead of its release.
It was exciting and truly an honor to share the film with international audiences. Presenting it in Busan again before its official release is especially meaningful, and I'm very grateful.
Content created with artificial intelligence is also taking center stage at this year's market. Genfluencer, directed by Hyun Hae-ri, has attracted attention as the first Cannes series selected feature-length film with roughly half of its footage generated using AI. Starring actress Bae Yoon-kyung, the film showcases the potential of AI in content creation and storytelling.
In the past, directors often had to give up certain scenes because of budget constraints. With generative AI, I was able to create the scenes I envisioned without those limitations. I believe Genfluencers will be an experiment unlike anything seen before.
Beyond screenings and showcases, the market is facilitating business opportunities across broadcasting, streaming, and creator media sectors. Marking its largest edition yet, BCM 2026 has brought over around 700 companies from 55 countries for international networking. One of the most closely watched developments is the first official participation of the China Pavilion, signaling the potential for broader cultural and content industry exchanges. Emerging markets such as Mongolia and Romania took part in the event, while broadcasters and media companies including Arirang TV also met with content producers and distributors.
The basic role of the market is to provide a preview of works that will be released later in the year. Many projects introduced here have become major hits. Looking ahead to our 30th anniversary, we hope to grow into a marketplace attracting participants from around 100 countries and some 10,000 buyers and sellers.
Running through Friday in Busan, BCM 2026 is celebrating 2 decades since its launch in 2007 and reaffirming its status as one of Asia's premier content trading platforms. Jo Young-eun, Arirang News, Busan.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Congo's Ebola outbreak spread to a new health zone on Wednesday as 37 new confirmed cases and 12 deaths were recorded in a single day. The new zone of Chomia in Ituri province on the shores of Lake Albert is the 26th health zone in the Democratic Republic of Congo where Ebola has been found. Total confirmed cases stand at 635 with 127 deaths. 8 patients were newly declared recovered, bringing total recoveries to 30. On Wednesday, the U.S. State Department said an additional $20 million will be provided to help fight the Ebola outbreak. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will seek re-election, his Likud party confirmed on Wednesday. The party made the comments after U.S. President Donald Trump told a journalist he did not know if Netanyahu wanted to continue, adding, quote, "He's had an amazing career." Likud responded within hours, saying Netanyahu would run and, God willing, would win. The election must be held by October this year and will be Israel's first since the October 2023 Hamas attack. A poll published by the Israel Democracy Institute think tank this week found 61% of Israelis believe Netanyahu should not run. Netanyahu faces ongoing corruption charges, which he denied. Africa's top soccer referee returned to a hero's welcome in Somalia on Wednesday after the U.S. barred him from entering the country for the World Cup over vetting concerns. Hundreds of supporters greeted Omar Abdul Kadir Artan, who had been set to become the first Somali to officiate at a World Cup as he arrived in the capital, Mogadishu. He had been turned away at Miami airport on Saturday for what the Trump administration called links to, quote, suspected members of terror organizations. Artan denied any wrongdoing and said the decision was, quote, a matter of fate. In Barcelona, Pope Leo inaugurated the completed Tower of Jesus Christ at Sagrada Familia on Wednesday on the 100th anniversary of the death of Antoni Gaudi, the architect who designed the masterpiece. Leo blessed the tower's 5-story ceramic cross visible across the Catalan capital and told thousands of worshippers at a mass attended by Spain's royal family and prime minister that Christians, quote, cannot believe in Jesus and promote war. Construction of the world's tallest church, which stands at 172.5 meters, began in 1883 and is expected to be completed by 2035. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
A pleasant early summer pattern continues on Thursday. Today we're looking at a chance of passing rain and strong sunshine. Showers are expected to develop in many areas this afternoon, bringing 5 to 50 millimeters of showers. Rain could come down more heavily in the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province. But skies will remain fairly sunny with strong UV rays nationwide. Southern provinces will be much sunnier with no rain forecasted. So please keep an umbrella handy, not only for showers, but also for the intense sunlight. And this afternoon, Seoul will have typical early summer temperatures for this time of year, getting up to 27 degrees Celsius. Daejeon, Gwangju, Busan will also get up to 27 degrees, but Daegu, Gyeongju will be hotter at 29 degrees. Temperatures will gradually rise, and from this weekend into next week, many areas could see daytime highs nearing 30 degrees with a chance of showers on Sunday.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.